Club at UNMC is helping people outside of the doctor's office. First Alert 6's Philip Katafamo shares the effort to lower blood pressure for those most at risk.
Barbershop is a trusted space where neighbors gather for good conversation and a cut. On Saturday, clients at Keelan's Barber and Beauty got their blood pressure checked too.
Health is wealth, you know what I'm saying? Like how can we enjoy the fruits of our labor if our health ain't up to par, you know?
Keelan's was one of 4 local shops participating in free blood pressure screenings. The screenings are spearheaded by students with the Student National Medical Association at UNMC.
I just feel like it's a lot of people that don't really tap in with their health. And what more important way to do it other than come to the barbershop.
Barbershops were chosen as a way to meet people where they are and help address hypertension in the African American community. Hypertension, or high blood pressure, disproportionately affects black men and women.
On average, about 58% of black men, adult black men, are believed to have a hypertension, as opposed to, let's say, 47% of their white male counterparts.
Omar Cisse tells First Alert 6 this community is impacted due to several social factors.
Not being able to access care, not feeling safe or hard in medical spaces, not having the right diet, living in communities where exercise facilities are limited, being under extreme amount of stress on a daily basis, obviously genetics and other social factors that we haven't mentioned, smoking, alcohol.
Experts say hypertension affects millions of Americans. The hope with this effort is to get more people, regardless of who they are, thinking about their blood pressure.
Not everybody goes to the doctor, and a lot of people don't know their blood pressure is high until something happens. So I think trying to make awareness of it now and showing, even in the barbershop, getting it while you're here is a good thing.
Reporting in Omaha, I'm Philip Katafamo, First Alert 6.
The SNMA plans to hold a similar effort in about 6 months. It is recommended that you get your blood pressure checked at least every 3 to 6 months.